Hello, thank you for volunteering for the Academic Decathlon, and thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this training video. We're going to walk you through how a judge will set up their room, how the student will enter the room, we'll take a quick fast-forward preview of how things look, and then show you a sample competition. Again, thank you. Now let's get started. 98.73% of the time, the Academic Decathlon is hosted in a school, in a classroom. There will be a student seated outside each classroom, and that student also is seated beneath a schedule that lists number and name. As a judge, you care about the number. Let's go ahead and walk into the room and see how our judges have things set up. So every judging room will have 2 judges and 1 timer. You can see that our judges have arranged the room such that the speaker has ample space to speak. Every judging team, including the timer, has a very handy little folder with them, and in that folder you will see that there are a variety of items, starting with the timing cards. Now our timer will go through this. You will see this being used, but we've got green, yellow, and red timing cards. The timer also has a stopwatch. The timer, if they are so inclined, may use their personal device to time. Judges, you do not need to worry about timing. Also in the folder, we have a sample paper ballot. Now, you will be scoring on your personal electronic device. The sample paper ballot is there for your reference. Along with that, you have a copy of the judging guidelines that will help you to determine what is a 1, 2, 3, all the way through 10. Also in your folder, you have a printed copy of the instructions that we are going through, if you'd like to read. And for the impromptu portion of the speech, there are also multiple pages of impromptu topics. And for the judging team, it is important that you cycle through those. So the first student may get page 1, the second student may get page 2, third student page 3, and then you cycle through on an ongoing basis. Finally, our timer also has the timer script that will be read by the end of the evening or the end of the day. The timer will have that fully memorized, but the script is there. So the way that this will work, we'll walk through this very quickly here. Our timer will typically go out, validate the student number. It is very important that the judges cross-check what that student number is. The judges will enter that info into the header of the ballot on their personal electronic device, and then our student will begin speaking following the timer script. Let's take a look at what that looks like right now.
Hello. Welcome. We're ready for you. Come on in.
Perfect, thank you.
Can you please verify your student ID number?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Great. Thank you.
Hello.
Student ID number 1234.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome. Pretend I'm telling you about timing.
Our student will deliver their prepared speech. When that is completed, the timer will recite the instructions for the impromptu speech.
Pretend I'm explaining the impromptu speech directions.
So while the student is preparing for their impromptu speech, the judges are scoring on their personal devices the prepared portion of the speech. The timer will then explain the impromptu timing.
I'm explaining the impromptu speech timing.
And then the student will deliver their impromptu speech. When this is complete, the student will exit the room, and we will go through this with the next student. So our judges are lined up, they're ready to go. They've got the room arranged, they've got the folder, they've got their personal electronic devices. One thing that we do want to add here, when a student is in the room, the door should be closed. When we are waiting for a student in the room, the door will be open. Now, let us take a look at what this actually looks like.
All right, we're ready for you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you please confirm your student ID number?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Great, thank you. This is student 1234.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, welcome. We will start with your prepared speech, which is up to 4 minutes long. When 3 minutes have gone by and 1 minute is remaining, I will hold up the green card. When 3 minutes and 30 seconds have gone by and 30 seconds are remaining, I will hold up the yellow card. And at 4 minutes, I'll hold up the red card and ask you to finish your current sentence and stop speaking. To avoid a timing point deduction, you need to reach the yellow card, but not go past the red card. Timing will begin with your first spoken word.
Surprise! You've been wearing earrings wrong your whole entire life. Well, maybe you haven't been, but I know I certainly have. When you buy a new pair of earrings, it comes with 2 extra pieces. A fastener, usually known as a butterfly bag, used to keep the earring to your ear, and then a small piece of rubber or plastic. I usually throw away this piece of plastic without really thinking about it, and putting it on every morning would waste a precious 30 seconds of my morning routine. But I started to think, what if this piece of plastic actually has a story? Turns out it did. The creator made it when he realized his wife's earlobes would sag when wearing heavy jewelry. So he came up with the solution of a small 3mm disc to help to simply solve this problem. It was made in the 1980s, and since then, tens of millions of copies have been sold to high-end jewelry stores to about 50 cents a piece. The creator's whole theory behind the disc is, if you hang a painting on a curtain, it will lean forward. But if you put a board behind that curtain and hang the painting again, it will stay stable. It's the same way with ears and discs. So, I love jewelry, and I wear a lot of it. But I never really considered that disc to be important. I never even included it in my everyday life. So it got me to think on the story of the disc, what else has a story? On my everyday commute to school, I see a lot of things, but most of those things my brain blacks out. Maybe it's a crack on the sidewalk or a penny on the ground. Or maybe it's a car that passes me by super fast. All of these things, looking at surface value, don't have meaning. But maybe that crack in the sidewalk once had a flower growing out of it. Or maybe the penny has been there for days and days, just waiting for somebody to notice it. The story of these objects is overlooked. We don't really consider that penny, that crack, or anything to be important. But how far can this theory go? What can we overlook when we're overwhelmed, stressed, and totally involved in ourselves? Well, maybe we start to overlook what a friend is talking about. Maybe we overlook what a person's name is when we first meet them. Maybe we overlook a license plate on a car. There's a range of things that we consider important and non-important. But when we are so focused in on ourselves, most everything loses meaning except us. Everything has a story, and that's where this theory begins. You can find a story in that table, in that chair, anything. So why don't we consider that? Why don't we consider this into the objects of our everyday life? Because that's what makes it important. It's the little things. It's not the huge, grandiose overview of the day. It's these little car trips or like watching movies with your friends. Everything in there has meaning. We create meaning out of meaningless objects, but that put together is what makes everything grand. Thank you.
Great. All right. We will now move on to the impromptu portion of the speech event. When prompted, you will turn over the piece of paper on this desk and see 3 impromptu questions. You have 60 seconds to choose a question and prepare a speech that is up to 2 minutes in length. You may use the provided note cards and pencil if desired. Your 1 minute is complete. As a reminder, your impromptu speech is up to 2 minutes long. When 1 minute has gone by and 1 minute is remaining, I will hold up the green card. When 90 seconds have gone by and 30 seconds are remaining, I will hold up the yellow card. At 2 minutes, I will hold up the red card and ask you to finish your current sentence and stop speaking. To avoid a timing point deduction, you need to reach the yellow card but not go past the red card. Timing will begin with your first spoken word.
So I was born in Oregon and then raised here in Iowa. My parents divorced shortly after that, about when I was 3. So I've always struggled with the concept of home, bouncing in between homes of my mom and dad, my mom living here in Iowa, and my dad out on the West Coast. I couldn't really find that place where I belong. But now, most of my life has been spent in Iowa. As some people say, I'm an Iowa captive. But now that I'm looking at opportunities for college and maybe moving out of state, it's scaring me more than ever. I feel like I'll never find that place of home, just like I did when I bounced between homes when I was younger. I have looked at schools all over the Midwest and some out on the East Coast, but nowhere really feels right. I don't know if one can ever find their home, or ever a place where they can truly, wholly belong. An average person moves up to 3 or 5 times in their life, so nobody finds a permanent home. A dog will move beds, a cat will move from alley to alley. We always have different kinds of home. But can a home be spiritual? Can you find a home with the people you love and adore? I think you can, and I've found that in some of my closest friends, closest relationships, and it has brought me comfort when I couldn't find my home. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There was one timing point deduction on the impromptu speech.
And now let us speak just for a moment about scoring, which is one of the primary responsibilities of the judge. In your packet, and hopefully distributed in advance, you will see a grid that looks like this. Carries numeric scores across the top, general criteria and categories down the side. Beyond this, I will offer you a few very simple judging and scoring tidbits. Number 1, assume that every student that you're going to see will be good. Some will be excellent, some will be very good. Assume good as a starting point. You can build up from that, and you can move down from that. Scoring runs on the basis of a 1 through 10. In 20 plus years of doing this personally, I have rarely scored below a 5. In a speech, there may be a student that freezes up, doesn't finish their speech. That's going to slide down below a 5. There may be an interview student that simply, similarly, freezes, cannot answer a question, creates an awkward silence. That is going to be below a 5 as well. But generally speaking, every student that I have seen over the years is a good student, a 5 or above. I believe that will be the case for what you see as well. Secondly, I would encourage you to potentially score a bit lower on a first student. And by that I mean, you see your first student, they're delivering a speech or an interview, and you think they are an absolute 10. You always run the risk that the next student will come in and be better than the first student, or student number 5 will come in and be better than the student that you've already evaluated as a 10. It is better to have a slightly depressed scoring scale than a large collection of 10s. And finally, as it relates to the 10s for scoring purposes, I offer you this. You will see many very good students in the event that you are judging. Think of a 10 as something that you are going to remember not only immediately after that competition, but for years to come. You will know a 10 when you see it. There is a difference between very, very good and absolutely exceptional or excellent. So the guideline I would give you there, beyond the grid, is quite simply, am I going to remember this student far into the future for the speech, the interview, or the interaction that they had with me? Please accept our thanks again for volunteering for this. Enjoy the event, have a little fun, and thank you for supporting our youth.